It's not about a new car, a new house, more money.
Right.
It's about what lifestyle, what life
Sure.
changes. What do you want to be experiencing? Welcome to the Kickass Couples Podcast. This is the place where we help committed couples who want to level up their marriage experience newfound clarity, hope, and confidence. We're Matthew and Kim, co-hosts and husband and wife.
In 26 years together, we've seen a lot and never thought it could be as good as it is right now. We're here to help you successfully navigate the messy, dirty, and wonderful world of marriage.
We believe all couples deserve and are capable of experiencing an extraordinary and fulfilling marriage. And each week, we're bringing you life lessons from real-life successful couples to help you grow and strengthen your relationship.
And now, back to the show.
Say goodbye to bickering over budgets and hello to winning financial strategies for couples. Join Kim and me as we lead a panel of financial experts in discussing practical tips and tools for couples to crush their financial goals and strengthen their relationships. Tim Scannell, a CPA with 34 years of experience, provides wealth management services to business owners. He joined Hightower in 2008 and founded Hightower Great Lakes in 2018. Their team offers customized portfolios, proactive planning, beneficiary preparation, and change anticipation, allowing business owners to focus on running their businesses. Shannon Weinstein is a CPA and fractional CFO for growth-minded business owners, offering relatable examples to simplify the financial side of business. She hosts the IRS Worst Dream podcast, Keep What You Earn, and is a frequent speaker in business coaching communities and masterminds. Aaron Thomas, a 2002 Harvard Law School graduate, is a family law expert in Georgia, representing clients in divorce, custody, child support, and prenuptial agreements. He founded prenups.com, which focuses on creating fair prenups to prevent disputes and create happy marriages. Get ready to take control of your finances and build a stronger foundation with your partner. Welcome back, everybody, to the Kick-Ass Couples Podcast. We are having a fun recap episode today on winning financial strategies. We had a fantastic panel, Kim, with three different but similar related background people who really gave us some great insight on what couples can do to have financial strategies that are intentional and effective in their relationship.
Yeah, I agree. I thought each perspective was unique based on their experience with their clients and loved what they brought to the table in this episode.
So what was one of the big takeaways? Like what was your first aha moment in our time together with that panel?
Well, we came right out asking the question, why are finances so difficult in a relationship? And Shannon had a great response in that, in her experience, it's an intimate topic, right? It is something that can cause anxiety, fear sometimes in some people, and insecurity even. And everybody has their own money story. They bring to the table a different experience and history with money, which I thought was an interesting perspective, because when we come into a relationship with each other, we don't always think about that we may have a different money history or story.
I love what you said, Kim. You said finances are intimate, and they are. And when I say intimate, it's not necessarily always exciting, but it has deep emotional bonds and connections
Right.
to how we relate to money. How did we experience it growing up? Were we in lack? Did we struggle to eat? Did we get kicked out of homes? Or did we have everything we wanted and we never had to really think about? But those habits and relationships to money obviously come forward in relationships. And you and I have had to navigate that because, one of the things that they said, it is intimate, but you don't lead on a first date and say, how do you feel about credit? What's your credit card balance like? Or are you a spender or a saver?
Said that it's not good first or second date material to talk about your financial credit card balance.
Yeah, like most intimate topics in relationships and in finances is an intimate topic. We have a lot of taboo and a lot of baggage around discussing what those things are because we make judgments around how we handle money and how other people handle money. And I think that A thing that Tim said is he said, everybody has a money personality, right? Just like, they like to experience intimacy certain ways, they have ways that they feel comfortable with in acting about and around money. And if you don't know what the money personality is of your partner or your spouse, you're not going to know how to relate to them because you're only looking through your own lens.
Sure. And how do we relate to money, right? I might relate to money different than you do based upon my money history and the way I was raised to think about money. And so those are all things that we have to consider when we get really serious in a relationship. We want to start having those conversations.
Right.
And
Right.
and Tim Tim was great because he sits down with couples that are from, newly engaged all the way through, people who are planning for retirement. And so he had a great perspective on, what people are doing at a very young age and then how it translates later in life when you are older and you're planning for retirement days.
Yeah, he's a financial planner, and he said that, when he meets with obviously different life stages, people have different concerns
Right.
and relationships to money, and there's a lot of maturity that occurs. But he said sometimes when he gets together with a couple, that will be the first time they've had a discussion
Right.
about
Ever.
money, about how they feel about it, what's it supposed to do, what are their goals, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later. But I think when I talked to one of the questions I asked Aaron, and he has an interesting approach, Kim, as if you listen to the episode, his website is prenups.com, and he was a divorce attorney, and he said, I saw thousands of cases of couples getting divorced. He goes, I wanted to get on the other side of it. So a lot of people, when they hear prenup, they go, oh, that's when this falls apart, who gets what, right? A division of assets. And that's a part of it, but he's really done a great job about expanding it to include how are we going to relate to each other? How are we going to communicate? What does commitment look like? How are we going to do this marriage thing together? And he said, he thought that people don't really want to address that, and that, he says people avoid talking about finances. We talked about it already. It's not sexy, but he said one of the challenges that he deals with most, and you have to get out in front, is when two spouses from different socioeconomic classes come together. They've had different relationships with money. And he said if they don't handle that and get out in front of it, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah,
because
it's a real challenge later on because they both have different ideas, perspectives, and decision-making processes based upon that socioeconomic status. So it's really important for those people to definitely sit down and have those discussions.
Are you tired of feeling like you're living with a roommate instead of a lover? Do you miss the days when you were completely into each other, intellectually, emotionally, and physically? The truth is, many couples are struggling behind closed doors. Putting on a brave face for the rest of the world is exhausting. If you want to get back your joy, return to thriving, and take pleasure in your marriage, then Kickass Couples Coaching and Matthew P. Hoffman are here to help. Join us alone or with your partner and start taking steps towards overcoming the pain-filled obstacles and improving your relationship right now. For a limited time, we're offering a free relationship assessment call. Go to MatthewPHoffman.com/coaching to book your free call now so you can start making real changes in your most important relationship today. So to all our listeners today, if you've not had where did you come from financially? Kim and I had slightly different or greatly different experiences growing up in relationships to money. And we had to kind of talk about that. And we did get tripped up a little bit because we each think our perspective on finances is what our spouse's is because we're together. And that's just not the case. And your background, your history, your experience. So if you haven't had a conversation with your partner about where they came from and how that's impacting their decisions in your relationship right now, that's one of those necessary conversations to get rid of the expectations or the hopes or thinking you're on the same page when you're not and you're acting out differently.
Yeah, and I would say that all three of our guests came back to the conclusion that it really is about communication. communication, right? We say that's what gives oxygen to a relationship, healthy communication. And it's plain and simple here as well.
Yeah. Kim, I think Shannon had a really great approach. And that was kind of another aha for me. Do you want to share a little bit about what she and her husband did? They're both entrepreneurs. They come from a household of business. And what kind of conversation she said we had to kind of get rid of the issues that might pop
Yeah.
up?
What I loved is that she said, while we were in a really healthy, happy place with lots of harmony, we're young into the relationship and we're both feeling good about it. And so she said, we sat down and she said, what are the ways that this relationship could really go sideways? What are the ways that we could really, put it to each other and screw each other? And she said, we talked about what that could look like. And if it happened, what we would do about it. And she said, we sort of just took all of the air out of what a big blow up could have possibly been by dealing with it early on and already asking those questions and already making those decisions on how we're going to handle it. I loved it.
Yeah, it's huge because if you have that conversation, you get into it, and she said, and it was all hypothetical, it was all hyperbolic, it's like imagined, right? But if they each imagined it and dealt with it when things are good, and that's one of the key things I want to follow up with, Kim, is a big aha for me. It's so easy when you're lovey-dovey and in a good mood and things are going great to deal with the potential financial pitfalls. It's no fun, and that's the proactive muscle, right? And it works in relationships like it works in business.
That's right.
It's not the right time to address something when it comes up and you're heated and hot and angry. Never works, especially on finances, because we both go back, we revert to what our comfort zones are, the walls go up, and it's a fight and a conflict as opposed to a give and take discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that kind of one of the questions that you asked is, you said, if you sat down with two young people, and what would you advise them to do first or right away? And I think Tim said, you know what, they got to get comfortable with where they are on debt. Some people like to leverage it and use it and maximize it, and some people say, oh,
I can't sleep at night.
I can't sleep at night. I don't want any. And so
Right.
you got to figure out how you're going to handle debt in your relationship. And there's all kinds of great courses. We've done other special episodes and talked about financing and conflict, right? But I think that Tim said you got to get a feeling of how they think about it and talk about it so you understand their viewpoint and you can go forward with those decisions on just the idea of debt.
Yeah, because you each have to be comfortable with what those decisions are. And exactly, again, coming back down to communication. And then I loved, Aaron, he said that one of the great things, and, we think about a prenup, we think kind of, oh, that's taboo. Don't want to have that. That's really going to put a wedge in the relationship. But he said, one of the neatest things about having a prenup is that before it can even be signed and executed and be valid, everybody has to lay out all of their finances, full disclosure of exactly what they have. And I think that's a great process for couples to have to go through. No hidden secrets. You don't have this little side account over here, or you're not got this credit card that you're hiding away to use, whenever you want. It is full disclosure of all the assets.
I think that's huge because you really have to. There are no secrets.
It's vulnerable.
I think it's vulnerability, but it's also no secrets. Like, no skeletons. Like, well, I had chapter 11 one time, or, oh my gosh, I've got this car and I'm upside down in it, or I didn't pay a credit card and I have a judgment against me. My credit score is horrific. Right? All those things you don't want to, and it's about keeping secrets and being vulnerable. And then on the other side, Kim, I think it's important that when you find out these vulnerabilities, whether they're financial or emotional or social or whatever it may be, physical, you've got to honor them from your partner and make sure that you're receiving them in confidence and in trust and not using them later as ammunition. Getting in an argument. Oh yeah, well, you can't even manage a credit card, da 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 da.
That's right.
And so I think that, like anything in a relationship, we got to hold those secrets in confidence and in trust. and use it for closeness, not for fodder for a future conflict or fight.
I mean, he stated that that process alone can be really eye-opening. And I think it's because, today couples are getting married a little bit later in life, right? And as opposed to when our parents got married, or even our grandparents, they were getting married in their 19, 20, really early 20s. And at that point in time, neither had much, right? Didn't have
Right.
the work experience. They hadn't been independent for a long time. And so now, as people are getting married a little bit older, we have to take into consideration that they may have multiple credit cards. They already may have purchased a home, right? And have some equity in a home. They already may be putting towards a 401k plan. And so it looks a little different now than it did.
Yeah, other assets, investments.
Yeah, to be able to put it all out there. So
Yeah, I think he said it was kind of like a corporate merger.
yeah,
Like getting married today is like, M&A, merger acquisition. All right, what are your assets? What are your liabilities? Oh, you have this investment. You have that 401k. Oh, you had a previous relationship,
right.
kids,
I could bring up the other
assets.
thing.
Oh my gosh. So being aware of that is definitely more difficult today. Are you struggling to maintain the emotional and physical intimacy you once shared? Do you feel like you're spending more energy finding fault and tearing your partner down instead of magnifying their good and building them up? Don't worry, you're not alone. Many couples are struggling behind a forced smile and an inauthentic happiness. You feel drained, unheard, and more often than not, unappreciated. The good news is it's not too late to rekindle the flame and strengthen your bond. I'm offering a free relationship assessment call to help you take the first step towards revitalizing your relationship and reaching your own relationship nirvana. Whether you come alone or with your partner, I'm here to help you create the space for a more fulfilling and satisfying relationship. Don't wait any longer. Make the changes you need to thrive. Book your free call today at matthewphoffman.com/coaching. And let's get started on your journey to a kick-ass relationship. And then, Kim, one of my next big takeaways is I said, all right, the question we asked was, when you're working with a client, in whatever viewpoint or approach it is, and you're talking about successful relationships, but what does financial success look like? And I love what Shannon had to say, because she said, you know what? People come to her and she's coaching them and talking to them about money, and they say, well, I want to get 20% growth of this year over last year. And she'll say, well, what does that mean? Oh, we've got an extra $250,000. She goes, okay, well, you got an extra $250,000. What's that going to change?
Yeah. What does that do for you?
That's not a goal. It's a metric. And you can say, I've got more cash or less cash, or more debt or less debt, or more assets or less assets. But what does it mean? She said, what is it that you're going to do with that money? And really, oh, well, I want to work 10 hours less a week. And if I have more money invested, I can work less, which means I have better quality of life, more time with my wife, or I get to spend more time with my kids. And I think she said she really wants people to get below the surface. It's not about a new car, a new house, more money.
Right.
It's about what lifestyle, what life
Sure.
changes. What do you want to be experiencing?
I want my kids to go to private school. Like, there are so many money goals that people can have. And I think that was her point in being able to really say what financial success looks like, because she ties it to the goal.
Right. So when you're thinking about your financial goals that you have for the relationship and individually, how do you want it to impact your life? So what impact do you want to have? Then talk about the strategies that are there to give you the impact, as opposed to just X dollars or more debt, less debt, because it's the feeling and the gift that's going to give you kind of the arrival, which leads to the strategy that's going to help you get there.
Yeah. What about spending rules?
Oh, well, it's funny because Aaron brought one up.
Yeah. We
And-
actually use that rule.
And we use the same rule. And so it's another big takeaway. I think you've got to have an amount of money or spending that you say, you or me or us, whether it's individually or joint, no one's going to spend above a certain level unless we have a discussion about it.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, if it's like, I think Tim was saying he came home with a new car early
Right.
on when he got married. And he goes, it was not a good idea, caused a lot of issues and some problems in the relationship. committing resources and assets like that. Kim and I say if we're going to spend more than $500, either one of us or on behalf of the family on anything, doesn't matter whose money, it's our money, then we're going to talk about it. And it might be 250, it might be 100.
Right. It could
You
be
might,
different for
it doesn't
for
matter what
everyone.
level it
Yeah.
is, but it's getting that agreement and having that rule.
Yeah, I agree. And another sort of broader thing that we talked about with Shannon was that, when we sit down and have these conversations, we really need to be specific about what our priorities in life are, right? We want to have a broad view of what our priorities are and really get specific as to those things ahead of time so that we can build our life around what those priorities are. And I really love that because we may be a couple that loves to travel, right?
Mhm.
Or we may be a couple that really wants to take the money and set it aside to, add on to our house and to do, some renovation projects. Or, maybe we do want our kids to go to private school. So there's all those little things that we have to think about and
Yeah.
build our life around those as a whole.
They talked about the concept of buckets, which I think is great. It's nothing radical, but if you like to travel, Aaron said, you know what, we like to travel. So we might take 5% of what we make and put it in a travel bucket. So when we say, hey, let's take a vacation,
Money's there.
let's look at the travel bucket. Oh, we have X dollars in there. That's what we could spend, as opposed to we're going to spend and crank up the debt. And now we're living with a lot of debt to take a trip. And those buckets can really be whatever you want them to be. It could be a new car bucket. It could be a redecorate the bedroom bucket. Kim and I had a bucket. We wanted to do some renovations of a kitchen, but another expense came up and we had to say, kitchen's going to have to wait because here's some other critical things we have to do. So talking about that is great. And I think another, Kim, a great takeaway that I got was from Shannon, is she said, having a quarterly business meeting
Yeah.
with your partner, with your, like, and
To
she
review where we are.
not
where
what we
we go.
spent, but her approach was, she said, how is our money doing what we want it to do for us
Great question.
in all these areas? Because your money doesn't control you, you control the money. You're deciding what you have to or what you can or what you'd like it to do.
Exactly.
And then, man, we're not saving, we're spending too much. Our money's not paying down the debt like we said it was going to, or we've taken in more than we thought we would have. What are we going to do with it, as opposed to just spending it because it's there, or we're not getting as much as we said? We've got to trim the sails and adjust some of our budgets and what we're spending and how.
Yeah, loved it. I thought the whole episode was great. I think that I took away that we need to be transparent. We need to communicate. We need to set financial goals, and we need to revisit those goals and again communicate and have meetings surrounding those goals and ask those questions.
Yeah, and I think, Kim, we have 14 pillars in the Kickass Couples Nation platform, and we usually focus on the 3 C's when we're talking to a couple or a relationship, which are commitment, communication, and conflict resolution. But most recently, you and I have talked about it. The most important pillar that runs through every
Everything
pillar
we do in our
is
relationship.
communication. And if you're not communicating well about financial fears, goals, strategies, desires, if you're not a ninja in communication, you're going to fail in the financial arena. And we did a rapid fire with all 3 of them, Kim, and I said, what's the most important thing? And Aaron said communication. Well, Shannon said, well, he took mine as communication. Tim said the quality, the frequency of communication. And Tim had a funny thing. He said, man, if I was a psychologist or more of a therapist, I could coach people how to communicate correctly about finances. So the one takeaway, you've heard me say it, Kim, is that communication is kind of the crazy glue that holds your relationship together. So if you're not communicating deeply, intimately about financial issues, stresses, pressures, strains in the relationship,
Yeah.
it's a recipe for disaster. And that's where the conflict's going to come in and the resentment. So really making sure that you're having open and quality and deep and intimate communication about your financial matters is really a huge key.
And I think when I think about that also, I think about it from a perspective of, if you're the breadwinner and you're feeling stressed and challenged, you should be able to come home and relieve those stressors with your spouse. and be able to get all of that out there on the table. And I think that enough of us don't do that. They don't come home and say, these are some things that are happening. These are some challenges that I see. And then the other spouse communicating their support, that just brings security and intimacy and closeness back to the relationship when you're able to do that. So I know it's hard, but again, I think we've got to be vulnerable and open and transparent with each other.
Yeah, and some openers, guys and ladies, might sound like, "Hey, I'm struggling with. I need help on. I'm really bothered. I have a lot of stress around." And when your partner shares that, it doesn't mean they want you to fix it or change that or relieve that stress. It means they want to engage in a discussion and have you understand where they are. We talk about getting in the foxhole with each other and
depths with it, and both dealing with it together. If I love you and I'm supporting you, I'm not going to take that on, but I'm going to be in there with you, supporting you and doing what I can to relieve some of those stressors, to be supportive and to be engaged with you.
Yeah. So a great episode. Listen to the whole thing if you haven't. The recap is just giving you guys the cliff notes and the nuggets and pearls that we took away, so you can think about what you can apply and use in your relationship to kick it up and get onto your own relationship nirvana.
You got it. Thanks for listening, everyone. And remember, happily ever after doesn't just happen. It's on purpose.
That's all we've got for this episode of the Kickass Couples Podcast. If you like the content of this show, you'll love Matthew's newly released book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. To receive a digital mini book of quotes and images from the book, all you have to do is rate this show and leave a review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Then email us a screenshot of your review at podcast@kickasscouplespodcast.com, and we'll get it over to you right away. Until next time, remember, happily ever after doesn't just happen, it's on purpose.